So when we talk about wines that are part of the road less traveled, this is certainly one of them. The Finger Lakes has records of growing Chenin Blanc all the way back in the 70s. But for whatever reason, it didn't continue. And there had been no commercial releases of Chenin Blanc, as far as anyone can really tell, until we released our 2017 Chenin Blanc. Now, this is grown up at the Gibson Vineyard, about 10 miles north of here. And it was the first of what was an experimental block that was put in 2015. So after 2 years, we got our first crop. The 2017 Chenin Blanc was delicious, but uneven. And I say uneven because it was a new vineyard. And there were a lot of what we call hens and chicks on the clusters. So big berries and really small, unripe berries. It reached an enormous level of ripeness. The final weight of the juice, it was, I think, 24 bricks. That's really ripe for the Finger Lakes. But because there were so many chicks, the acid was also really high. I think that wine finished at like 9.8 TA, and we finished it fairly sweet so that it wouldn't be too alcoholic. It was finished at right around 12% alcohol and had some nice residual sugar to it. By the time we got to the 2018 vintage, the vines were beginning to really balance out. We had a much more typical chemistry at harvest, and we decided to make a wine that was slightly drier than the 2017. Chenin Blanc traditionally comes from kind of northern France. So you're talking about the Loire Valley, where it grows famously in vineyards next to Cabernet Franc. For that reason, it felt like Chenin Blanc was a natural fit for the Finger Lakes. It's not as cold hardy as Riesling, which means in some vintages we'll see bud kill and maybe even vine kill in ways we don't always want to see. But aside from the Gibson Vineyard parcel, we also planted a home vineyard with 1.5 acres of Chenin Blanc in 2019. So some fruit will start to be seen this year, not really commercial production. By next year, by 2021, we should be bringing in some of the first real fruit from that vineyard. We'll have a couple places that we can compare how Chenin Blanc is doing in the Finger Lakes. But based upon our early releases of this varietal, I think it's got a bright future. What's cool about this is you have the chance to taste the only Chenin Blanc, the only commercial release in the Finger Lakes, because no one else is really growing it in this volume. So let's go ahead and taste the 2018 Chenin Blanc. One of the other reasons, by the way, we wanted to plant Chenin Blanc is because it has the versatility of Riesling. It makes a brilliant sparkling wine, which we made in 2019 and should be released sometime in the next couple years. It makes a great dessert wine, which we also did in 2019. We took kind of a bunch select. So we took clusters that had botrytis to make a very small lot dessert wine. But it also makes this great middle ground of dry, potentially barrel-aged whites, dry stainless steel whites, and whites that have some residual sugar. An easy Chenin Blanc to find, if you go into a liquor store, would be Vouvray. And we sort of modeled the Vouvray approach with some residual sugar, but still a nice, approachable wine with the 2018 vintage. So it's beautiful. On the nose, again, we get some of that midsummer hay. There's white flower that just jumps out at you. The lanolin is present. There's also this kind of yellow fruit. So I'm thinking apricot. I'm thinking star fruit that is right there on the nose as well. And in this one, I'd also say I get a little bit of gooseberry. Nice balance, again, between the acid, the residual sugar. It offers a totally different experience than Riesling, as it should. A little bit higher toned in some ways, not acid, but I'm thinking of a little bit more raspberry, a little bit more strawberry. It's got this broadness that isn't driven by citrus, it's driven by other stone fruits. There is also the most subtle hint of gunflint on the nose, which is a note that we associate with reduction. One of the things I like about having some reduction in wine is it means that there is a bit of an absence of oxygen. That lends itself to good aging potential, since there are really two things that cause aging in wine. It's metal content and it is oxygen. And that's what causes the oxygenation of wine. So having that slight reduction, that like a matchbox or a lit match, is a sign that this wine has an even longer life to live. Now, this was a really small production as well. I think the first year we only made 20 cases of Chenin Blanc. By this vintage, I think we were up to about 50. So it's not a wine that will last very long. It's a wine that is a winery exclusive, but it's a wine that I'm really proud to bring you. It shows, again, the versatility of the Finger Lakes, but it shows where we're trying so many new things, not just in the cellar, but in the vineyard. And keep in mind, these trials in the vineyard require an extraordinary amount of patience and investment, but it's something that we're willing to do because we see such a bright future.